Hi guys, Ryu here from Blender Bros, and in this video I'll show you how you can very quickly improve the speed of learning of your hard surface design in Blender. Let's go. So a very simple answer to the question how can you do that is one word, and that word is immersion. You need to immerse yourself in the universe of good quality sci-fi design. And the best place to do it is Star Citizen. Now, I'm not affiliated to the game, I'm not selling it, and they're not sponsoring my video. We're not related, okay? I'm just telling you from my experience what I think. I haven't found a better place to look at the best, seriously, the best design, functioning design, sci-fi design out there other than Star Citizen. It's incredible. Anything they fucking do is just mind-blowing. Ships, hangars, buildings, even broomsticks are sci-fi, okay? I mean, anything in that game is just insane. So I really recommend you guys do that. Get the starter pack, it's like $45, which is a joke. You know, log in and, immerse yourself in that universe. Now, the game isn't really playable, in my opinion. It's a bit boring and there are a lot of bugs, and also it's an alpha, so every time there is a server reset, everything gets wiped. I wouldn't get attached to your vessels and shit, but when you buy a game and you get the starter pack vessel, that vessel always gonna stay with you. So you have like a small ship and you can fly to different places, and you can visit different planets and different outposts and whatever. And there are a lot of really cool places, like some orbital stations out of asteroids. You can find them on Wikipedia, Star Citizen Wikipedia, and just plan your trip and go there. But the point here is that in my opinion, that the universe itself and the design and anything out there, okay, in that game is just insanely good. Like, I haven't found a place that, I would think like, well, this is shit. Some of the old vessels maybe are a bit heavy in terms of design. They're not really that sophisticated as the new ones. But they have also kind of like a, Fallout 4 kind of a charm, if you know what I mean. Now, in this video, I wanted to show you something really special. We have reached out to the RSI legal department in London, and they give us permission to show you some of these vessels in Blender, okay? So, I wanted to show you how they structured, how they built, because, when you go in-game and you look at something, you can't really sometimes comprehend how it's been done, because it's just textures, lighting, very confusing. But we can actually strip these vessels here layer by layer and see how are they designed and constructed, so you can see how the real proper sci-fi is actually done and functioning in game. Now, the game engine they're using doesn't have nanites, because only Unreal Engine 5 at the moment has nanites, so they have to be kind of conservative in terms of, or careful in terms of polygons, which is why they're using specific techniques that we're going to be talking about here. Nonetheless, these vessels are pretty robust in terms of poly count. Like, this one is almost 1 million, but I guarantee you that when they're in game, they just split into objects that act as one vessel. So if click on something, you will see that I can actually strip this vessel into separate bits and parts. So it's just not one piece that's 1 million polygons, but several pieces that together are 1 million polygons. But let's talk about this design, because it's quite interesting. So quality of the forms, the basic forms and shapes of these vessels is world class, okay? I mean, the way these basic shapes of the vessels and ships are designed, from one side they're really cool looking and they sometimes mimic animals, or I'll show you, or some creatures or something from nature, but at the same time are very functional and in design makes sense. So it's really incredible. And like this vessel, for example, which is a herald from I think it's Drake, yeah. If you look from the front, it looks a bit like a squirrel, with these arms here, especially when I go to render view. You can see, because we have all these vessels with textures, right? So you can clearly see, the face here and two legs. From the side, it resembles a bit a mouse, especially the front bit here, right? It resembles a mouse. Was kind of like a massive engine. Same from the top, right? From the back is really interesting too. This kind of looks like a bumblebee, a really awesome rocket. But let's talk about the detailing, okay? So if you look at this model in object view here in 3D viewport, you will see that there are a lot of kind of like layers here. And now what it is, guys, is nothing else but a layer of decals. This is a one insanely massive decal atlas. I mean, it's huge. And these are all the panels, all the buttons, all the, screws, hinges, and all tiny details all over the cockpit and the hull here. So if I strip that, right, so if I click that here and press H, look how clean that becomes. So now I can see that the design here is really simple. Now by simple, I don't mean it's easy to do that. I'm just saying the design is quite simple. So you have this beautiful, outline of a shape with very interesting elements added to it to create the overall shape of the ship. And you got all these elements and details like doors and hinges and this cockpit, and these vents here on top and the bottom, and the door and massive hinges. This is really, really cool. But if you look at it objectively, it's quite simple, right? So all the details, right, are just these small tiny details, and the rest is quite plain and simple. And this is why this design is so powerful. Now you do have a bit more intricate design sometimes, like for example here, if I'm going to move these decals away, I still am left with quite an impressive level of detail here in terms of geometry. But again, the decals are adding a lot because all these here are decals, right? So if I select these two here, these, right, and then we're gonna select these, okay? So let's go to let's isolate them. Look, these are all decals, guys, okay? This is thousands of decals, okay? That's not hundreds, it's thousands, which is insane. I mean, positively fucking crazy, right? So that's how these models are detailed. Decals. Which, by the way, is something you can do with decal machine. Let's strip this vessel from both layers of decals, right? And you see that the form becomes much more quiet. And if I go here now to the side view, you still see other decal atlases here on the bottom and top, but mostly becoming a bit more calm. And if I'm gonna bring them back, you'll see all these intricacies. And for example, like panel cuts, all that is done with decal atlases, right? So again, the form is very powerful, and then you have texturing, which is really interesting. So this model is basically gray, right? But when you look at, for example, the way the model is constructed and designed, you're gonna have these crevices, right, which produce a lot of AO and darker shadows, which are gonna kind of stand out as details. So again, these vents here, these guns here, legs in the shadow because the ship casts a shadow on the bottom. Darker bottom here, these beats here a bit darker around this face, the cockpit, and again some vents here in the bottom here on the front, right? So you have this gray material surrounded by these secondary elements, secondary details just created by shadows and a bit darker mats. And then you got this tertiary elements, tertiary texturing created by these yellow stickers, and you can clearly see them because that's the only saturated warm color in the entire design. And it frames the entire model really well. You got these two running here along this cockpit. It just looks like a face. And you got these two on wings kind of wrapping it around. And these two emergency stickers and these on hinges here on the bottom and the tiny ones on gear. And if you look at it, from afar, you got this framing created by these yellow, bits and pieces here and there around this kind of a gray mass with these black elements. And this whole design is one of the most incredible, in my opinion, ships in this game, this Herald. It looks very plain, but when you look closely at it, it just really is very striking. Another thing that is really interesting about these vessels is that, they come with fully functioning interiors. So if I'm going to strip the windows here and look inside, you can clearly see that we have all the details of the cockpit and, the sides here on the walls, everything is actually modeled physically. It's a physical geometry, right? With a little bit of decals here on the floor, here and there, but mostly these are, you know, these are actually physical polygons. Like all this chair here, you know, this is all modeled. All these details here in this cabin, right? Everything here is modeled. So let me bring another vessel because I want to show you something a bit more complex than this. Now this is a bit more complicated. Well, far more complicated. This is one of the recent vessels, I think. I think I saw it last year as well during the exhibition. This is a mining vessel called Mole, with these lasers here in the front and also has lasers here on the side. Here, this opens up and the laser comes out. So this is pretty incredible. Of course, the same as the previous vessel, fully functioning interior. Now you cannot see much here because of the lighting, but I could always add another light to show you a bit more. And I can see that there is, you know, fully functioning cabin here inside of this vessel. And if you're gonna go to regular view, again the same story. You got, you know, decal atlases on top as details. They're all over the place, you know, and they split into separate atlases because, you know, one would be just too many decals, and each of these bits and pieces has its, you know, separate decal atlas. And this vessel is way more complex in terms of geometry. If you look at it, let me just hide this floor. If you look at it from any angle, really, the modeling is just incredible in terms of detail and design. But this is really complicated and, you know, quite intimidating in terms of advanced level of modeling, because, you know, that's just insane amount of work that went into building this ship. It's just, I'm absolutely gobsmacked, guys, when I saw this shit, man. Holy fuck. Look at this. It's incredible. This design is extremely simple, but you know, when you look at it, there are not many details on this model, right? But the trick here is planar shifts. So if you look at this design here, you get all these planes like here, and then another one here, and here in the front, and then you got the top, and you got this part, and the, you know, these two, and they all at different angle towards one another. So like even the wing here, if you look from the top, this is not a straight line. It goes, you know, goes this way and then shifts that way. There's a tiny angle here. So all these, you know, all these planes are at an angle, and this is what creates this incredible overall, you know, feel to it, like an aggressive feel to it. A very modern, you know, very sci-fi, right? Very aggressive look, kind of looks like a bug, you know, staring at you. Same from the side, from the back, really awesome. And from the top, just incredible. Doesn't matter which angle you are looking from, these models look incredible. And this is one of the key features of good design. So when you're designing something, you know, always rotate your model to see if it looks good from different angles, change, you know, perspectives and all that to see how it feels. That's really important. Now let's talk about bevels and geometry, because it's quite interesting, right? So now the way they run bevels, okay, let me just grab this piece here, okay, and I'm going to clean that. So Alt J, and I'm going to run clean mesh on it. So let's go here and clean mesh, and let's see here. So if we disregard the decals, which are by the way here, so let's Shift G, material, and let's hide it, and we can actually hide this one too. So Shift J, material, and hide it. There we go. So now we have just a plain geo without any decals. Now look how simple that geometry really is, right? We have just these bevels here, which are wider ones, and we also have n-gons, a lot of them. Like, you know, this is a massive n-gon here. I mean, this is probably some junk which shouldn't be here. Probably, you know, some errors during export, but in general, You know, this is a massive n-gon here. So n-gons are not a problem in design, like I said multiple times, and you know, there's always some idiot arguing that point that yes, I know that n-gons, you know, are not acceptable in VFX. Yes, I know they're not good when you're animating organic stuff, but we're not doing it, guys. We are designing something that doesn't move, doesn't animate, and it stays stiff. So you can have n-gons, you know, all over the place, and these models are the best example for it. So of course this mesh is a little bit of a mess. You know, originally it wasn't that dirty, because I'm guessing these bits here are not really supposed to be here, but you know, you can look here very clearly that this is a massive n-gon. You got this bevel coming in here, and this is a massive n-gon here, and no one cares because again it's a flat surface, so it's fine. Another interesting thing here is, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it on this model, because this one has quite massive bevels, but maybe we're going to be able to find it on this gun. So let's grab this gun, and I'm going to increase the auto smooth here to 60, because I want to show you something cool and run the weight normal. So here, if you look at this model, let me just clean that very quickly with hard ops and Alt J. There we go. So if you look at these bevels here, right, these are mid-poly bevels, very clearly, right? So you got a one segmented bevel running on this mesh, and you have weighted normals. These bevels are quite large, and they create this illusion of sub-D, of sub-D mesh. The mesh is quite soft, right? It's not the mesh, guys, it's the bevel. And the way you achieve this bevel in Blender is extremely simple. You simply run a one segmented bevel. So you go to Q with hard ops, bevel, and you scroll down till you have one segment. Here in the bottom you can see. And then you need to fix the shading by adding weighted normals. So now I have bevel with one segment, and I have the weighted normal running on the mesh as well. And this is how you create these, you know, very supple bevels, and it's literally one segment on the mesh. Okay, so it's one segment. So that's how they create the bevels in game. All these bevels are real, they're not baked, and they one segment, you know, bevels. Okay, so it's a mid-poly technique. It's very commonly used in games like, you know, Star Citizen, also Alien Isolation, and so on and so forth. Now the reason why they do that is because baking bevels doesn't really produce good results. We talked about it in our course, the game asset course, that you know, this is really the way to go about it, because the when you bake bevels onto a sharp corner at certain angles, when the light falls on it, it's going to look just awful. So you want to create actual bevel with this mid-poly technique. So this is it, guys. That's how they make their models. There's nothing else to it. It's just the really outstanding design in terms of form and functionality combined into it, than just a regular modeling. If you know, if they need sub-D, they're probably using sub-D, and if they don't need sub-D, they don't. You can load in a model from the origin manufacturer, and this is most likely a bit more towards the sub-D. So let's just clean that, Alt J, and let's clean this mesh here as well. So clean mesh, and then we're gonna clean these panels here because we don't need them. So wait, Shift G material and just hide it, and you can see clearly here that, you know, this is somewhat a sub-D surface, but again, you can see that the sub-D is not actually evenly distributed, and you know, it's just, as long as it works, it's fine. It's a bit more dense here in the front, a bit less dense here on the side, because, you know, the curvature is much more shallow, so you don't really need a dense topology. So again, it's not even quads, it's basically whatever you need to get the job done. Like here you see quad topology is getting a bit more even on this corner, and then sparse here when it goes down, and then you have massive quads here to finish the design. So occasionally they use sub-D when they have to, but then again, you know, when they don't need to, like here, they're switching back to n-gons. So they're using a, you know, type of geometry that follows a purpose, you know, for whatever they need it. So if they need it here to be, the geometry to be curvy and supple, they need to use subd, and when they don't, when you know it's on flat surfaces, they use n-gons because it's just simply fewer polygons. So there you go, guys. That's how these ships are structured. Now the vessel here, Vanguard, a very small vessel, but incredible design. Looks a bit like a swallow, like a bird, with this double tail here, with these massive supports. I mean, the engineering and the the design on these is just incredible in my opinion. Absolutely fucking mind-blowing. Now the cool thing about it is that these vessels are structured from multiple pieces, so we could start kind of disassembling them, and you will see that, for example, the interiors are modular. So this is the interior of the vessel, which is modular. So if you're gonna be stripping these sides here, you can actually see inside of the vessel. Let's just strip these parts here, the walls. We can actually see inside of the ship. These are probably beds here on the side, and then we can strip this one here. Look inside of the cockpit, right? Move these, the roofs and the sides here. There we go. And you can look inside of the vessel. So this entire interior right here is modular. This is how, for example, they are able to change functionality of the vessel by simply replacing the modules. So if you want to create, for example, like a research vessel, they're going to grab these two modules in the middle here, and they're going to replace them by something else. But this is how you could structure the interior of a vessel if you wanted to, by simply adding modules inside of the structure of your vessel, and as long as they fit the overall shell of the vessel, you're good. So again, if you remove that, you got this modular interior. So from the moment you enter the vessel here from the back, there's a drive core, by the way, here in the back. So if we're going to look here through the door, we can walk into the vessel, and it's door, 3 layers of door, which is kind of cool. There you go. And then we're gonna have a cockpit here. I mean, look at this, man. Jesus Christ. I'm telling you guys, I'm blown the fuck away. I mean, I could just move in here and just keep studying. Look at this cockpit. This is just mental. Absolutely fucking mental. And that's all geometry, by the way. From what I'm seeing, the focus is on putting more emphasis on geometry, inside of the ship, because that's where you're gonna spend most of the time. And the interiors, since you're gonna be seeing them from afar, are mostly decals. And it kind of makes sense because, when you walk in here and you had all these details, made out of decals, you would be kind of seeing that they're fake. But nonetheless, even though we have a lot of geometry here, if I'm going to turn on the render view, I don't know if it's going to be too dark. Yeah, it's a bit too dark, so we will need to have some light here to see that. But let me just move this origin here to the chair and grab a lamp here. So point light, and we're going to increase the power to 300. And let's just move it up here and towards ourselves, right? So you see, we still have decals all over here, these panels, because all these are decals and they're probably running on top of the geometry. So let's just turn this off for a second. There you go. All these are decals. So if I'm going to click here, Shift G, material, yeah, this is all decal atlases, right? And you can see that there are multiple levels of them, because that's one, and there's another atlas running in here, right? Secondary atlas, and they're all decals. Alright guys, I hope this video helps you a little bit in understanding how this top tier models are being designed. Hope it's been educational for you, and many thanks to RSI for allowing us to show you this to you guys, because I think this is absolutely incredible experience. And I highly recommend you guys really get this game and log in and just admire the universe as much as you can, because there's a lot to admire over there. The last tip I'm going to give you is that when you're going to log into game to Star Citizen and you would like to see different type of ports because there are different types of starting locations like New Babbage, Lorville, Area 18, Orsinium, etc. Right? So you could actually wait for the server reset, which happens quite often, and then the game is going to ask you again which starting location you want to choose, and you can choose the other location and just log in the other area without actually having to fly there. But I would also recommend you guys research Wikipedia, the star system Wikipedia, to find locations to which you can fly close to the starting locations, because there's a lot to see. Like, you know, there are stations, orbital stations around the planets, there are stations inside asteroids, there are stations on planets, there are outposts on planets, and there are abandoned sites, salvage yards. There's a lot of stuff going on, and you can you know, go there, land, walk around, and you know, look for yourself how everything is being designed, and create your own visual library. Just take screenshots, and when you model something in the future, you know, open your visual library and open your PureRef and just, you know, look at something. For example, you're making the landing gear, study how the landing gear have been made, you know, how the mechanical, how the engineering works in the landing gear. Like, you know, for example, here you can clearly see how this works, right? You know, that the gear folds up, you know, this moves up, this piston goes here, and this one pulls the gear, you know, up to the up the chassis. So this is really, really cool to see how this is all designed, you know, what kind of cuts they're using, and this can be all done with screenshots in game. There are a lot of ships in, there are like showrooms with ships, so you can go and actually see a ship inside of the showroom, and also players are flying ships, so you can sometimes walk up to a vessel that someone lands somewhere and, you know, kind of walk around it. And next year there's gonna be for sure an exhibition, so don't miss it. It's a fantastic opportunity to take as many screenshots as you can and also fly any rentable vessel in game. There are quite a lot of them, so you could spend hours, you know, doing that. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.